Knicks head coach Tom Thibodeau is about to wade into the playoff waters with his young squad. And joining me now to discuss is Zach Braziller of the New York Post. Hey, Zach, thanks for taking a couple minutes.
Yeah, of course. My pleasure.
So the big question heading into this matchup that begins on Saturday is the health of Julius Randle. What's the very latest there in terms of his availability for Saturday?
He's done parts of practice here the last 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. He hasn't done contact. He hasn't been a full participant, but he has been practicing. He didn't have a boot on his foot on Sunday. We don't really get into practice at all, so it's hard to get anything more than that. But it definitely seems like there's a chance for him to play Saturday. He's going to be a game time decision. The big question is, what Julius, what percentage of him are you going to get? Is he close to 100%? Is he 50%? Is he 60%? I think it's going to be hard for the Knicks to win this series if they don't have Julius Randle at full capacity. But the fact that he is making progress, Tom Thibodeau says, is obviously a good sign.
Nothing's given, obviously, in the playoffs, especially in a matchup like this where the Knicks are considered to be the underdog. But if they are only getting 50% of Randle, let's say, and I know that's a little bit, you don't want to speculate, but if he's not 100%, is it wise to play him, especially out of the gate, maybe in this first game, or does he need a little bit of extra time?
That's a great question. It's something that Tom Thibodeau is going to have to figure out. And the other added thing with this series is it's the first 3 games are really spread out. They go Saturday, Tuesday, Friday. So if they decided to hold him out for game 3 at the Garden, he's getting another basically full week of recovery. If let's say he played game 1 and they ever won the game, maybe they don't play him game 2, try to get him healthier and see where that goes. But I do think the spread out nature of the series will obviously help. Whether he plays or not, it's more recovery time for him. So I think that's obviously also something to keep in mind. The fact that, look, if he doesn't play Saturday, you have now 3 more full days for that ankle, until game 2.
Where do they miss him the most on the floor?
They miss his rebounding, no doubt about it. He had a terrific year on the glass. They miss his shot making. The Cavs are a really good defensive team. They play slow. They have elite rim protection with Mobley and Jarrett Allen. But look, Randle had a fantastic year. He was an all-star and deserved to be one. He really kind of adjusted his game plan with Jalen Brunson, where he, kind of played off the ball more, wasn't quite as ball dominant. The 3-point percentage maybe wasn't quite what it was 2 years ago, but he still hit a ton of threes. He's one of, probably was one of the 20 best players in the league this year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They're going to miss him everywhere. They're going to miss him on the glass. They're going to miss his scoring. They're going to miss him, even on the defensive end, although Cleveland is more dependent on their perimeter guys to score. But look, if Randle is 50% or isn't playing, the Knicks are clearly going to miss him.
You mentioned Cleveland sort of grinded out, slower style. What's the best counterattack for the Knicks in that scenario, whether they have Julius Randle or not? How do you kind of counter against the way that they play?
Yeah, look, the Knicks don't play super fast either. I think they're bottom 5 in tempo, but they do push it at times, especially that second unit with Quickly, with Obi Toppin, with Josh Hart. I do think you're going to see the Knicks run on occasion here, pick their spots, because Allen and Mobley are terrific protecting that paint. But the one thing the Knicks, that's to me, the one big area here is the second unit. The Cavs are not very good off the bench. The Knicks crushed them in the regular season in terms of their benches. I believe they outscored them by at least 9 when you look at the 2 benches, and the Knicks bench is terrific. I mean, Quickly and Hart are basically starters. They come off the bench, but they really play starters minutes. They close out games. The Knicks bench is really good, and it's been really good all year, especially since they, and then especially late in the year when they added Josh Hart to that mix. And that's a group that does get out and transition and run. I think that's really an area the Knicks could hurt the Cavs when the Cavs go to their bench.
You wrote recently that this is a different Knicks team than the one that went to the playoffs last year and fell short, and detailed why that is. Obviously, the addition of Jalen Brunson has been a big difference maker, a guy that has a lot of playoff experience. I mean, is this truly a different group for Thibodeau this time around heading into a postseason scenario than it was last year?
Yeah, to me, it's not even close. Obviously, you have Brunson. I mean, 2 years ago it was Elfrid Payton, who really slumped down the stretch. I don't even think he's in the league anymore. And and they ended up kind of starting Derrick Rose at some point in that series. Now you not only have Brunson at the 1, you have Emmanuel Quickly, who had a phenomenal year, his third season in the league, an absolute breakout year. I think he's going to be the sixth man of the year. Obviously, you have Josh Hart, a really good two-way player, is new. And then you look at some of the other guys. Randall's better than he was 2 years ago. Barrett is better than he was. Obi Toppin is better than he was. You have a really good perimeter defender, 3-and-D wing, Quentin Grimes, who wasn't on that team 2 years ago. Mitchell Robinson, the backbone to the Knicks defense, their rim-running, shot-blocking dynamo, was hurt 2 years ago. He didn't play in that series. So, yeah, I don't think it's close. I think this Knicks team is a much better team than it was 2 years ago. I think it's much better prepared for a postseason when you consider Brunson and the pieces they have. Look, 2 years ago, if Julius Randle struggled or got shut down, the Knicks really were going to have a tough time beating anyone. This year, they've shown they can win without one of their top guys playing well. They've won games they beat good teams without Brunson playing great. They've won big games even when Randle was out. You know, you can look at that Cavaliers game, the last regular season meeting when Brunson went off for 48 points. To me, this is a team, look, I'm not saying they're going to win this series, but I'd be very surprised if it's not a long series and they play much better than they did 2 years ago.
And how much of this series is going to come down to Mitchell Robinson being able to handle the Cavs' size? You mentioned his defensive prowess. Is he one of the X factors in your mind in this matchup in particular?
Yeah, I think he's one of them. No question about it. You know, Robinson is a terrific interior player. He's an elite shot blocker. He's an elite offensive rebounder. The Knicks had a top 5 offense this year, and a big part of that was their offensive rebounding. That was another area where they really hurt the Cavs, was second chance points. The Knicks, I believe it was something like 15, and they averaged 15.5 second chance points compared to the Cavs around 6. That's a big difference. If you're getting 9 extra second chance points over a team over a 4-game stretch, that's not something to be taken lightly. I think Robinson's an X factor, and I mentioned before, I think Quickly is an X factor. I don't even know if nationally people realize how good of a year he had. You know, he averaged over 14 a game, and that was in, not high usage. He's become a really, really good help defender. His shot has really returned to what it was his rookie year, shooting around 37% from 3. Quickly is a guy, especially facing some of those Cavalier backups, that could do a lot of damage.
Do you think he's been underrated? I mean, why do you think it's been that way this season?
You know, I think part of it, look, his first month wasn't great. And I think the other thing is Brunson and Randle had such great years that it was easy to kind of overlook a guy. I mean, Quickly has had a ton of really good games, when Brunson was out. He had that fantastic game in Boston against the Celtics where he basically played the entire game. It was a double overtime game and carried the Knicks to a win. I just think when you have other stars on your team, sometimes you get overshadowed. But inside the Knicks, they know how valuable he is. He's going to be contract extension eligible this offseason. I expect them to lock him in.
You also wrote about Knicks coach Johnny Bryant and how he has had a relationship with Donovan Mitchell, and that could potentially be impactful. Can you just detail, what the relationship history is there and why that could potentially make a difference in this matchup?
Johnny Bryant was an assistant coach for the first part of Donovan Mitchell's career in Utah. They were incredibly close. Donovan Mitchell swears by the guy, says he's a big reason he developed into an all-star guard. And Johnny Bryant knows everything there is to know about Donovan Mitchell. Now, it didn't necessarily help in the regular season. I don't think it's a huge factor, but I definitely think it helps that the Knicks have a coach on their staff who understands the player, who has kind of seen his growth and his development. So it is some kind of insider information for them of he knows what certain things they can do against him. Now, he still averaged over 31 a game during the regular season against the Knicks, and I don't expect it to be them shutting Mitchell down, but it definitely is helpful when you have someone on your staff who really knows the other team's superstar player.
Yeah, you still have to go out and play against him, but I would file that under the category of it doesn't hurt to know a little bit more about who he is and how he thinks, I guess. But whether that translates to being able to stop him in any capacity, we'll see. But interesting to kind of hear those relationships and get some insight there into how familiar he is with Donovan Mitchell's game. How would you classify this Knicks season so far? I mean, they're an underdog in this matchup. I don't know how many people, you know better than I do, how many people predicted that they would make it this far, make it to the playoffs. I mean, overall, is this season an overwhelming success in your mind?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about it. The Knicks have had a great year. When you consider their over-under number for the season was 39.5, most experts thought if they made the play-in tournament, it would be a good season. When you started the year, you thought the Bulls were better, the Heat were better, the Raptors were better, the Hawks were better. Knicks finished ahead of all these teams. The Knicks, to me, had a great year. Brunson was way better than anyone thought. Quickly took a monster step forward. Randall kind of recaptured his form from 2 years ago. Quentin Grimes showed he is a emerging young player in this league. Mitchell Robinson had a strong year. The Knicks have a really young roster. They have a lot of draft picks. The next big star that becomes available, the Knicks are going to be the top of the line to try to land him and become a true title contender. Look, there are no illusions. This team isn't ready to make a real run at a title. Even if they won this series, they're going to be a huge underdog, against whether it's the Bucks or the Celtics, whoever it is they play. But to me, this was a really big year because second time in 3 years, the Knicks made the playoffs. So they're starting to really set this winning culture that will attract them to, the next big star. Their young players took steps forward to increase their value, whether it is for the Knicks or as trade ships. They still have a ton of picks. They added a really good player in Josh Hart, who's going to be a free agent, but all indications are he will resign. He loves the Knicks. He's really close with Jalen Brunson. Look, if the Knicks lose in 4 or 5, it would be a disappointment, but I still think it would be a good year. As long as the Knicks don't play well in this series, even if they lost in 6 or 7 games, I think most Knicks fans would be happy because the future, to me, it's the best spot the Knicks have been in a long, long time.
When you live around here like you and I do, you realize that New York is a basketball town in its blood, in its veins. I mean, they're desperate for, it feels like, to me anyway, and they're desperate for the Knicks to be good because Knicks fans are passionate. I mean, I see it when I go to games. Are they, in your mind, as currently constituted, like a player or two in the draft away from returning to the glory days of having a roster that can win a championship? I mean, I know you said that they're not title contenders yet, and that makes sense when you look at Milwaukee and Boston, but is it really a matter of 1 or 2 more players? Is everything else indicating to you that they've got enough?
I think they're that one star away. I really do. I think Brunson, if you're your number 2, you could win a title with Brunson as your number 2. They have other really good pieces. We haven't even talked about R.J. Barrett, who, yes, he didn't shoot the 3 great this year, but he still had a good year. He averaged 20 points a game. He's still only 22 years old. People forget that. Look, we don't know who that player is going to be. Who knew at this time last year Donovan Mitchell would get traded, or Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant would get traded. You never really know with this league. It just takes one disgruntled superstar. But yeah, I think the Knicks are that. Look, finding that guy is hard. It's not. They don't grow on trees. They don't come available all the time. But I do think the Knicks are that one superstar away from being a true title contender. They have a lot of good young pieces. They've improved a ton. They were one of the best teams in the league on the offensive end this year. The defense was still good. Now, look, who knows? Does a Joel Embiid become available if James Harden goes back to Houston? I don't think Damian Lillard would fit, but there's already whispers that maybe if there aren't big changes there, he could become available. I have no doubt, though, if the Knicks can get that number 1 guy, the rest of the roster is more than good enough to be a true title contender.
And from the way you follow the team and follow Coach Thibodeau, do you get the sense that this young squad like each other, respect each other, that Thibodeau has the ear of the team? I mean, we saw so many examples of these superstars coming into Brooklyn and just disrupting the team chemistry. The locker room became acidic. A lot of times living in this area of player empowerment that we're sort of finding ourselves in, you've got these stars that parachute in and can quote unquote save the day, but sometimes they do a lot of damage in the process. I mean, take us inside and help us understand the feeling around this group right now.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do. I mean, you look at it, this is a team that's kind of been together. You have, from the team 2 years ago, Thibodeau's first year, you still have Barrett and Robinson and Randall and Obi and Quickly. Obviously Brunson and Josh Hart are incredibly close. There's joking around a lot. During football season, there was a ton of it between Brunson and Randall, who really hit it off from day one. Yeah, that's the one danger, is you bring in that start and you kind of shake that up. But yeah, it is a team that I think does like each other, and they clearly like Thibodeau. I mean, there have been spots in this season where you thought, all right, it's going to kind of fall apart here. They lost a few games in a row, and they come back and they respond so well. You know, the best way to assess a coach, in my opinion, has always been, does his team play hard for him? You know, in tough times, do they respond to him? And this team clearly has all year. They clearly did 2 years ago, and even last year they finished well. I know there are a lot of people that get on Tibbs, but I think he's done a great job this year. I think he's proven to be less rigid. He's proven to trust young players maybe more than people give him credit for. He's done a really good job here. 2 years out of 3 in the playoffs for a franchise that has not had any success really the last 2 decades, to me, is not something that should be overlooked.
So I won't keep you for too much longer because I know I've kept it for too long already. But do you see them getting out of this series with Cleveland? And if so, what will they have done? What is going to be the key to success?
I'm going to pick the Cavs in 7. I just think Randall is not going to quite be himself, especially early in this series. I just don't think they have quite enough. I think Mitchell's going to be the best player on the floor. I'm picking Cavs in 7. I think if Randall was 100%, I think the Knicks would steal one of the games early, and I would really give them a shot to win this in 6. I just think without Randall quite being Randall, they're going to fall into an early 2-0 hole, and I just don't think they'll be able to climb out of it.
Still a really exciting time to be a Knicks fan, and certainly when you look down the pipeline of what could be in the future, even more exciting. Zach, thanks so much for taking the time. Best of luck to you covering the playoffs, and hopefully the Knicks can do something special, but if not, we'll wait for next year. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.